taking the activated charcoal to lower cholesterol and triglycerides, this is the formula. You know, 1/4 of ounce of activated charcoal 3 times a day for 4 weeks will lower your LDL by 41% and triglycerides by 76%. And as I said yesterday, you can't do this and then just eat whatever you want and think it's going to work. It won't work. As long as you're doing a very good health program, eating right, not bringing in a lot of fats and a lot of sugar, then this will work. Otherwise, it won't work. In most cases, maybe a little bit, but don't count on it. External uses, and that's what I'm going to show you, how we can make compresses for all types of poisonous bites. I have worked with a number. I had a little boy once when he was 5 years old who had been bitten 3 times, and they weren't sure if it was a black widow or a brown recluse on his hand, because his father was worked in the landscaping, and so they would go out and clean off the bushes. Now, an anthropologist said that it must have been a mother spider that bit him, because they don't bite that many times in a row, and she was protecting her young. And then they're more venomous at that time. And so they don't have, if you know, any antidote in hospitals for spider bites. All they do is give Benadryl. And so the poor little guy was very sick, was swelling up. By the time they got him to me, he was almost unconscious. And so while he had a little bit of consciousness, I was able to get a little bit of charcoal internally. And then we did compresses or poultices every 15 minutes. We put it on and take it off. By then, you didn't see a hand. It was so swollen even between the fingers and all up his arm. And I mean, we were scared. I was scared for his life because he was just a little guy. And so I may overdo it in terms of, you know, some people say, well, Valerie, you can leave that compress on for at least an hour or more, but you know, in my panic to save his life, I changed it every 15 minutes, and we did that the rest of the day and through the night until the next day. And by the next day, the swelling was going down, his hand was coming back to normal, and he recovered very beautifully. And the nice thing about charcoal and clay will do the same thing, and so will the volcanic ash, is that you don't have any necrosis. In other words, it doesn't eat away. See, when you have a poisonous bite, it becomes necrotic, and it'll eat away the tissue, and usually you have to go to the hospital, and they have to debulk it, which means they have to cut at a higher margin around it and deeper, so they can stop, you know, that poison from spreading and just eating up your skin is what it will do in these kinds of bites, and especially snake bites are really bad. And brown recluse are real bad for that. And I guess all the poison spiders are. And so, but when you use these products, none of that happens. You get no necrosis whatsoever. It heals beautifully. You won't even know that you've been bit later on. And that's the beauty of using charcoal. And in fact, she took him back to the doctor when they said, you just have to go home and wait this out because there's nothing we can do but use Benadryl. And at that time, she didn't really want to use drugs. And so that's what we did. And when she went back to see the doctor, she just really went for a testimony just to show him what they did. And he said, well, whatever you did, if it happens again, that's what you need to do, because we don't have anything here in the hospital, which is amazing, because in the emergency rooms, they use it for everything else. They just don't think to use it for poisonous bites and things like that. Now, what I say at that point is that I'll show you. I make compresses. If I'm going to hike in heavy woods and mountain areas, I'm not taking a chance. So I make up several poultices and put it in a plastic bag, and then I do a little bottle, maybe this size, with some charcoal and water in it, and quite a bit. And I carry that with me because I don't know if I'm going to run into a good-sized rattler, and we have them pretty nice here in Alabama, and same way up in North Carolina and different places. I don't know what'll happen when I'm out there, but I want to be prepared for it. If something happened, I could easily put a compress on that and drink down the charcoal and then slowly move, because you don't want to run if you've been bit, because the blood starts circulating real fast, and it'll circulate that poison through your body real fast. So you want to move as slow as possible, but you know, you never know how far you're out. So by having compresses with you, more than likely it will keep you alive till you get to the hospital. I know when I was out in the meadow, and I had just got home from the Ukraine, and I was down on my hands and knees because I love persimmons, and some of the wild ones were there, still there. Somebody told me, go out all the way out to the meadow, Valerie. And I saw these really big ones, but there was a thicket I had to somehow get through. And unbeknownst to me what was in that thicket. And I got down on my hands and knees, and just to show you how good God is, got down on my hands and knees, and I was going to reach through to try to get these couple big ones. The moment I started to do that, all I can tell you, it was the flash of a movie or whatever you want to call it. It came in my head, and I saw a rattler eating persimmons. And as soon as I saw this picture in my head, I just jumped up and I backed out of there as fast as I could because it was so real. And when I walked this way, I heard rattle, rattle, rattle. And I thought, did I hear right? And I stepped one back, and I looked, and there was his tail. And he was a big one, all the way through that bushes. His head was right where my head was. Had I made another move to go through there, he would have struck me. Dr. Agatha told me, you would have never made it back to campus, Valerie. You would have died on the way because I was too far out, and he would have struck me in the head. And so that, ever since that, I don't go anywhere that I don't carry charcoal compresses. Hopefully you won't be down on your knees and be in a situation like that. But you don't know. You know, I didn't know. And so I just tell you those things. You know, summer's coming on, and we want to be careful. This time of the year you want to be real careful, because now's when they're coming out, and now's when they're shedding their skins. And when they're shedding their skins, they strike more easily. You know, because it comes like up over their eyes, they can't maybe see as good. So just be careful if you're, you know, going into heavy mountainous areas and in woods, and don't go over where logs are and heavy bunch of rocks are, because that's where they like to lay around. But anyway, that's a side issue, but I'm just telling you that because I'm trying to, summer's coming, so I'm going to try to tell you a lot of things, you know, to do for summer. Now, I was asked about radiation, and yes, it will mop it up. Radiation exposure will affect you with thyroid cancer, digestive problems, skin problems. It reduces the white blood cells, basically. And it may increase the likelihood of developing leukemia and lymphoma. When I was over after Chernobyl blew and I was in the Ukraine, that I ran into so much leukemia, especially in little ones, babies and little children, and they had thyroid cancers everywhere, and there was just a lot of strange things. The little ones, the mommies would come to me and say, what's wrong with my little girl? And she'd say, stick out your tongue, and there would be like a strike of lightning that was across the tongue. All kinds of strange things I seen in their bodies that I had I didn't know what to say to do, but I knew that it more than likely came because of the fallout with the radiation. And so, let's see, what's this about? You know what to do, and so we'll talk about that. And these are the things that you can do, that you should always have charcoal. I just carry a big one all the time. Like I said, I don't go anywhere in the world without charcoal. These are some of the things that you can use. Activated charcoal, non-activated charcoal. That's not a big deal. It has the same power, but not the same spread. Like the other one, you could have 2 football fields with a court. That would be the activated charcoal. The non-activated charcoal, maybe 1 football field. But the power is the same. The same way with coconut. Coconut shells, same power, but maybe it's 3 football fields. Do you get the picture? So the power of it is the same. And you can definitely get wood. I've done it myself where I didn't have it with me. I was in a situation, and so fortunately they had a fireplace. I just pulled a piece of wood right out of the fireplace, knocked the charcoal off, and crushed it up real good and made a poultice out of it. They're still going to get results from doing that. I mean, charcoal is absolutely a wonderful thing. So I'm going to show you again, like you heard me say yesterday, I just eyeball whatever I'm going to put it on, and then I just dip accordingly. Now, most of the time, if I'm dealing with some kind of painful situation, because charcoal is very good for drawing out pain, charcoal is exceptional in infections, so you're never usually going to do one compress. So I make maybe up to 6 of them, and I put them together and put them in Ziploc bags and put them in the freezer. And when I get ready to use it, I just take one out. I take a towel like this and I heat it up, and then I lay the compress on top of it and put another towel over it, and then it warms it up. And then I go ahead and put it on the body. So you can make as many compresses as you want and freeze them, and you will stick to the program if you do that. If you got to pull all this out every time you want to put a compress on you, how many are you going to do? Especially if you're putting 2 or 3 on a day. Do you follow what I'm saying? So if you want to make a dozen at a time, go ahead. So I'll just pretend like I've eyeballed something, and I'm just going to take maybe this much charcoal right here. Maybe a little bit more. That's not enough. I can't see with this dark spoon. Now, the next thing that I use, a lot of people use other things, but I've tried all the other things that everybody tells me to use, and I've not had as good a success as with ground flaxseed. The reason for ground flaxseed, not for anything necessarily medicinally, but it's gelatinous. You know what I mean by that? You know, it gets jelly. And so what it does is it helps the charcoal stick together and stay jelly and soft. Otherwise, charcoal gets hard, and then it breaks up, and then you have a bigger mess than you started with, because you just don't want to get charcoal on your clothes or on your carpet or anywhere like that, and it will fall out of whatever you have on if you don't make it gelatinous. Now, I say that to say this. You know, if you're in a spot and you don't have this, you just go ahead and make it anyway and use it, you know. But if you have this, and I carried this with me, you can use chia seed. That's the next best one I have found. People have told me to use cornstarch. Well, in my opinion, cornstarch made it harder. People have told me to use oatmeal. I didn't have so much success with that. I just haven't had success with anything else. Maybe some people can do it, but I haven't. It made it harder for me. So now I look and see how much I have down there, and I'm probably going to take maybe this much. Can you see that? Flaxseed. I'm going to put it in here, and I'm going to stir it up. And I sort of try to make a hole in the middle if I can. And then I'm going to go ahead and add water very slowly. Not a whole lot, just enough to get me started. If you pour it in fast, then it's going to fluff out all over you. And then the next big thing to do is you don't go like this and stir and stir and stir. Oh, here she comes. And you just start turning it slowly, slowly, slowly. You want it to mix in the water, so you're careful as you're doing this. Okay, now I need more water. So I go ahead and put more water in. And what's happening while I'm doing this is the flaxseed will start to swell up some, you know, and then it'll get nice and gelatinous. And you know what's nice about this too? If it gets too runny, just add a little bit more, you know, so you don't have to ever worry, well, oh, if it got too hard, now I got to throw that way and start over. No, you just keep adding till you get it right. I may have to do that here. We'll see in a minute. I'm going to have to add just a little bit more, because I did just what I told you. Okay, now she's doing it. Now. All right, now I'm going to let you see it. Here's how it should turn out, just about like this, and watch when I drop it. See how it's jelly. You know, it's just like pudding, I guess you could say, just jelly. See? So that's just about like you want it to be. So now I use chucks because we used to use saran paper, paper towels, rags, whatever, and you still can, because I've been in spots that I still have to use it. But as long as I'm in the United States and I can get my hands on these chucks, that's what I'm going to use, because you have your plastic here, you have the knitted, what do you call, quilted part here, and then you have this thin that you bring over, and I'm going to show you how we do that. It's really a draw sheet. That's what we used to call them back in the early days, in the hospital days. They were a draw sheet under them for who would wet the bed. And then they were cotton and they were thick. Nowadays, we have these disposable and you can just throw them away. I mean, that's really nice. Now, I'm going to tell you this. I'm not here trying to be a gypsy, but I'm trying to help you all out, is that for years, I could go to Walmart and buy these. And they were very nice. I don't know what's happened in the last couple of years, but that's not the case. And these are the bad ones. One day I spent almost $40 because I went to Walmart. I went to 2 different drugstores thinking, well, maybe this one will be a good one, or maybe this one. And none of them are. So when you open them up, they're like this. Now, you could go ahead and use it if you want, but it's a mess because I have tried to do it. Where these nice ones, you open it up like this. So I have them here. They're this big, and they're just, I'm just selling them for what I get them for. They're just $1 a piece like this. And this will last you for oodles of compresses. So you'll want to get some of these, because unless you can, buy 100 in a box or something like that, I don't know where you'll get them. And so I decided I better start handling them, because I was telling people this before I opened up the box, and when I saw it, I was so embarrassed, because I thought everybody's going out and bought these nasty ones, and they probably want to wring my neck, So anyway, just to show you now, what you do is you pull back this piece like this, and you go ahead and just plop that right in the middle. You see how I'm doing it? And you just spread it to whatever size that you're going to put this on. When I get done, you just cover this right back over it like this, and then you do masking tape. Now, we used to use regular adhesive tape, and that's expensive, and then I don't know how we came up with this idea, but we came up with it. And so you wrap it like this. You put this right on the edge like this. See how I have that? Like that right on the edge. Now this is the trick you got to remember to do. You turn it all the way over until you don't see it. And then you see it on the back. The reason being that you do it that way is because masking tape can be a little rough. And it'll, could rub on your skin. This way, it's so nice you don't get any roughness to it, and it stays nice and soft. So we do this, turn it over, and then I do this one, turn it over, and then cut off. If you've cut it too big, you just cut off the extra. And what I do when I'm making them, if I'm making a whole bunch of them, I have my whole center island just loaded with cut pieces of masking tape. So I kind of always try to make an assembly line when I'm doing something to get it done quick. So when you get done, basically, this is what you have. You have your compress. Now, if you make another one, you put the charcoals together like this, and then you put one up and then one down, and then you can make a bunch of them and freeze them, and then take them out like I said. And you will continue to do it, because now you've made it easy for yourself. Instead of 3 times a day, you've got to stir it all up and make it. And if you freeze them, they'll last for a good while. But let me tell you, put them in a plastic bag, and you might want to put them in a second plastic bag, because what will they do? This will accumulate the odors that are in your freezer. Now, it's not going to hurt this, but you might not want to smell that. So if you put it, you know, in a good Ziploc type bag, a freezer type, not your regular kind, because it'll pull right through that one. Then you'll be okay. Anybody want to see this, or I'll just lay it here and we can look at it.
So you put them in the freezer, put the charcoal sides together.
Put the charcoal size together. No, they'll stick a little bit, but as soon as you bring it out, you can start prying it loose. If you need to, you can stick a hot washcloth like this on top of the one you're trying to take off, and it'll get it released. Then you heat up. You take it. You know, you could take a wash rag with this size one. Put it in real hot water. You might not have to microwave. Get it in real hot water. Don't wring it completely out, just enough. Then lay this in here like this. And then you have another cloth and put it over top. It'll thaw it and it'll warm it. You know, now I'll tell you the other side of that, and that's real good for cuts and boils and sores, that you want to warm this up. But you got a bad inflamed area like arthritic knee, tendonitis, anything like that, the kind of the cold, I let it soften up to where it's not so stiff, you know, and then I put the cold on there. It feels wonderful to do it that way too. So, you know, you can do it either or. And I think we talked about all the other charcoal things that you could do with charcoal. Now, I don't know if you want to see clay. Clay is the same thing. You just put the clay in it. I put the flax in it, mix it up, make a compress just like this. And is that it? Yeah. Now, and then ace bandage it on. I don't know why we didn't come up with this back in the early days, but we didn't. We used to just tape it on, you know, and then it killed the people when we pull it off, you know, even on my own self. And then, but you know what? If you're somewhere and you don't have an ace bandage and they have some old rags, just tear strips up and wrap it around it and put it on. I tell you, all you have to do is ask God, and He'll just, you know, He'll just click it in your brain right away, and you'll be able to do it. Oh yeah, you can use saran wrap. And we used to use saran wrap, but because we have the plastic on the other side, we don't have to do that anymore. But you still could use saran wrap even with this to keep it on. You know, so, you know, it's just many, many, many things that you can think of to do. What?
I'm going to edit this out. Do you need me to get you the stuff out of the
Well, I got her. She said she'd do it. She knows where it is. I showed her. So if you want, you have so much to do. Okay, well, go ahead. I'm going to tell you, let me see, what was I going to show you? Okay, I'll just show you this a minute. No, that's not it. All right. Well, let's go. How many people here use aloe? How many know all about aloe? You don't know all? Well, I don't know all either, but I'll give you a quick synopsis on it so that we can head out onto a lot of the other things. I'll tell you, the French green clay is supposed to be the best. But I just had somebody tell me, what was the story they told me, where they used bentonite clay. Yeah. Tell it. Wait a minute, come here. No, come here. We want to take this.
Okay. All right. I wasn't there for the story, but my friend always tells the story about they were out hiking, and this woman fell, and she got like a part of a branch or something through her leg. I don't remember exactly what happened, but she hurt herself. And it started swelling up really fast, and they were like, wow, something's not right about this. And it looked really bad, and it was getting swelling bigger really quickly. So they packed it with bentonite clay, because they had clay with them. They take, take clay with them everywhere they go. And so they packed it really good, and they couldn't get her out till the next day. And so they hiked out of wherever they were, and they finally they got her to a hospital in Spokane, Washington. And the doctor came out, and he said, I want to know what you guys used on her leg. And show me what it was, because he couldn't believe that she had gaseous gangrene in her leg, which is usually you would lose your leg. And that bentonite clay had saved her leg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just how amazing these things are that God gave us. You know, this is all part of God's work. You know, it's in His ground, and there's various kinds of clay. And that was this bentonite clay that did this. Bentonite clay they mostly use in the intestinal tract, but you know what? When you have clay, you use it because it's going to work, and it deposits many things. Let's see, I think I had some stuff down here. You can put essential oils in clay. It's a natural negative charge again. It'll pull out any toxins that are in your bloodstream or in your body, just like it did with her. I mean, gangrene formed that fast in her leg, and like she said, she would have lost it. You know, by the time, when they saw her under any other conditions, if it hadn't even gone up to her heart by then. But anyway, what else was I going to show you? Just a hit on the aloe vera, just a little bit. Aloe vera, you know, is what they say, it's the pharmacy in plants. And there's over 140 different substances in aloe vera. And aloe vera, there's thousands of plants. No, I don't need it yet. There's thousands of different varieties all over the world. But it doesn't matter. You can just use whatever you get your hands on. It's going to work. Now, aloe vera, which I have up here to show you this, it's in the onion and the garlic family and the lily family. So that's why onions and garlic are so medicinal, because they're in the same family as the aloe. So when you find that out, you know that you're going to get a lot of medicinal properties in either one of those. Aloe vera now this is amazing with aloe vera, but garlic is just about the same. Across the board, it's all the oh, what happened? I'm so glad you pointed out to me. You didn't get to see it. Okay, here we go. Here's what aloe vera is: antiseptic, antiviral, anti-inflammatory, antibacterial, antifungal, and it's an antibiotic. It's all the antis across the board, and garlic falls right into the same place as that is. Whoops. Oh dear, this arrow, I have a time with it. All right, I did throw some garlic in here, because here comes garlic. You know, it's anti-clotting, anti-tumor, antiseptic, antifungal, anti-heart disease, antibacterial. You know, it's a broad spectrum of antibiotics, inhibits yeast organism, lowers cholesterol and triglycerides, and lowers blood pressure. I mean, that's just, mind you, I'm only on the tip of the iceberg with these do. I'm just giving you the highlights. They do much more, but if you know that they do these and have all these anti-properties in it, you can almost use it on any condition. Mostly with garlic, you take internal. You do have to be careful if you put it on the body, because it can burn, but I've known people to use it for different things that they've put it on the body. I've known them to oil it up a little bit, insert it in the rectum for hemorrhoids. I haven't done that, but I'm going to show you some hemorrhoids. Look, these are just some of the things aloe vera has in it. It has 6 antiseptic agents, 3 anti-inflammatory fatty acids, 23 peptides. You know what they are? That's immune system stimulators, you know, to help boot up your immune system, you could say. Nutrients, it has B12, 17, B complex, you know, just a whole, I'm just hitting the tip of the iceberg here. It has amino acids, 9 of the 10 essential. It has minerals, you know, calcium, copper, phosphorus, enzyme, amylase, and lipase. It works against pathogens, and that's the E. coli, Klebsiella, or Citrobacter, and yeast. It works against them. So, you know, it's the tip of the iceberg that I'm sharing with you. Here is some of the other things that I've used aloe just about on everything that's up here. And it works great in Crohn's disease, digestive problems. It works really good for GERD. That you're having a lot of, you know, painful burning, you know, in the stomach, where they say it's too much acid, but that's not true. It's not enough acid, and I can tell you a little bit about that later. Infections, vaginitis, you can dip a tampon in it and put it up inside of you. Nerve damage. I even helped one lady who had a really bad scalp problem, and so I took the aloe and washed her hair first, parted her hair, put aloe gel all in it, and put a real hot towel around her head, and afterwards left it on, I don't know how long. I actually did it twice, putting another hot towel, so I probably had it on her head for an hour and a half or more, and we took it off, and then we washed her hair, and she blew it dry, and she just pranced all over the Lifestyle Center, because her hair fluffed up. It never done that before, and her scalp stopped itching. She just thought she was beautiful. It was real cute how she acted over that. She was so happy. It works as a deodorant, and it works for hemorrhoids, and my little helper is going to go get me my hemorrhoid stuff, and I'm going to show you. Get the rubber glove too. Okay.
Stretch marks. How does it help?
You just rub it on. Yeah, because if you use vitamin E, that's one other thing you want to use with aloe vera, where you put vitamin E on, you put aloe on, and most of the time when you do those two things, you won't even see a scar. It'll clear up almost all scarring of any kind. But you have to start doing it right away. You know, like if you have a really bad cut and you're using, I'm going to show you that in a minute, just how it will clear up really bad scarring. But I'm going to show you how I've made suppositories, and I make them all the time for people that have hemorrhoids. And how you make a suppository is you just get an aloe leaf, but it could be any, you know, if it's even one of these little skinny ones, you can still use it. But it works great because it is astringent. So all I do is cut the end off like this. I fillet it. I take off the thorns, you know, because you don't want to use those. And I do this. I fillet it by just, you know, the rounded part, I leave that there. I cut off, I fillet the top flat part of this. And let me get here like this. And now you can see how this is. Now look, when you have a bad infection, you know, cut, sore, boil, whatever, you take a leaf and fillet it just like I've just done, and then you do sort of tit-tat-toe marks in there, you know, so that it opens up the juice, and then you take this and you put a chuck over top of this, and then you ace bandage it on wherever it's at. And that's what I do so that it gets lots of aloe vera. When I'm doing a suppository, and this, it's frozen to the plate. Well, now, that's a first. I've never had this happen before. Okay, here we go. Here's one. Anyway, a little piece just broke off. I cut them and then I freeze them, and I had used a real flat leaf, and then I stick a toothpick in and put it in the freezer. Now, I know what you're thinking. And it's true. When you insert this in the rectum at night, you are going to go, you know, for just a minute, because it is very cold, but hemorrhoids are very hot and they're inflamed, and so as much as it's still going to like feel good, and they might have to be for a few minutes, and I have them lay down when they do this, and then you have to put either paper towels in their panties or their pants if it's a man, or a pad of some kind, because in the night it will ooze out. You don't put this in any other time but when you go to bed at night. Now how I make them is, I'll be able to make a nice one out of this. I cut it like an oval, you know, like a suppository would be. I cut it like this, then I bend this back, can you see? Yeah. And then I just go underneath like this, and I do this. Whoops. See? And there's your suppository. You know, and then you put them on plates and you just get them frozen. Then, you know, a lot of hemorrhoids, you know, most of the time they come a little bit on the outside, some come a lot on the outside. So then you take the other part of the leaf that you just filleted, and you go ahead and you can cut it in pieces, and then you can go ahead and swab the whole rectal area where the hemorrhoids are. And I tell you, it shrinks them up fairly quick. I'll show you in a minute also, potato does the same thing. You can cut a potato, insert it, and it'll shrink hemorrhoids. But now suppose you don't have aloe. This is, you can take aloe gel or aloe juice and you can pour it in a rubber glove, and then you just take it and stick it in your freezer with a clothespin and hold it up and they freeze. Now, you know, they make a nice suppository, I have to say. You can just pop it out like this. And now, look, you have a really nice suppository. Now, this is just water I have in here, but you have a nice suppository. I will tell you a funny story. I have to tell. I tell this story at every class. I went in there. This is a few years back, and I went in there to hang up my suppositories that I was making, and I looked, and there was a glove in there that was frozen, and it was filled all the way up to here. In other words, the suppository was going to be about this long. And I thought, oh boy, I bet that's an interesting story. I have to find out who is doing this because you don't need them that big. You know, just the size of the lower part of the fingers like you see. And so anyway, I found the student, and it was a male patient. And I said, well, how are you is he inserting this in there? You know, because I was so amused by it. He said, yeah. I said, well, what's his reaction? He said, well, you know, he sings a little bit for a few minutes, but it's working. I said, well, that's good. I've never seen one quite that big. And, you know, and then I kind of told him you don't have to do that. But anyway, that was so funny when the way he explained it to me. He thought it was okay. But anyway, you learn all kinds of, you experience all kinds of funny things at times. And I'll show you that when I get to the potato poultice, because you can do the same thing. You can take a potato, cut it, and then you just cut the size like you saw me do right here. You would cut a piece of potato, you know, and it doesn't matter if it's thicker or not. You know, the thicker the better. You know, just cut a piece of potato out like this, and when you go to bed at night, you just insert it. And do the, you know, with it, make sure you have panties on or something to catch it when it slides out, because you know it will slide out eventually. Maybe I need to put this over here. So, you know, that's one of the things that you can do. Cuts and wounds, you know, I mean, I don't know of anything that can be better. Fabulous for sunburns, but this is what you have to remember when you use aloe on anybody's skin. It is astringent, and some people can't handle it because it draws up and itches you like crazy. I'm one of them. But there's a way around that. Is all you have to do is get vitamin E or olive oil and do a very thin coating, like over the sunburn as best you can, and then go ahead and apply the aloe, or apply the cool aloe over them first, and then take a little bit of olive oil and mix it in all over them, and it will not affect their skin at all. They'll be just fine, and it will really heal sunburn. You know, it's you know, what's it known for? What do we know it's known for? It's for burns. I mean, that's the first thing people do is rub and do. In fact, the Children's Burn Center in Philadelphia, maybe 40 years ago, used to use aloe, because where I live, there was a man that had a greenhouse and grew the aloe for the burn center, because he went to them and he shared with them what this would do, and it would heal beautifully. But like in most hospital settings and medical settings, just like hydrotherapy, it gets so that you have so many patients, you can't have one-on-one anymore. So, you know, then you go to the medications, unfortunately. But it would heal beautifully, and I'm going to just show you that right now. Let's see, what is this about? It's a scar inhibitor, and it's a growth stimulator. It's almost like comfrey in those, like a cell proliferator. Makes the cells grow fast and start filling in, and then it'll heal some of the worst of conditions. It has what he said, Freitag calls it a wound hormone. In simple terms, it accelerates the healing. That's the very same thing that comfrey does, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But I want to tell you about this Reverend Thompson. He had a kerosene stove in his house, and I don't know exactly what happened, but it blew up. And when it blew up, it got his leg right on the outside like this, and it burned him almost to the bone. And so he had numerous skin grafts, and none of them took. And he was really infections after infections after infections. And so his health began to wane. And he wasn't doing good. And so someone came to him and said, why don't you try aloe? Most people that don't know anything, they just think you're a little off. So he wouldn't in the beginning. Finally, this person was very persistent, and he said, what do you have to lose? Chances are, if you keep on, you're going to die, so why not take a chance with one of God's plants? So he's a pastor, so he says, all right, that makes sense. I'll go ahead and do it. So they started putting aloe on, similar to the way I showed you, and this is what happened. Here's 1 week after they put the aloe on. Now this white you see is not infection. That's beginning the healing process. And so now here's 3 weeks afterwards. Can you see how it's starting to close in? Here's 5 weeks after. We're seeing new skin forming. Can you see that? And then here we are 8 weeks after. Look at how much new skin has formed in on this. Well, to make a long story short, it completely healed. Completely healed. Here's the man who had, here's the man who had radiation burns on the last day of his radiation. Then they went back and they used aloe, and look how his face started to clear up. His nose still a little bit red over here, but the general cheek where he was really burnt out this way has healed up. And this is just 10 days using aloe. That began to heal up wonderfully. This was a very difficult situation with an ulcer on the leg. And you can see it took a while to heal this ulcer because this person dealt with it for a long, long time as well. And it was very deep to the bone. Anyway, it took a while, but look what happened. Healed and closed that ulcer right up. All they used was aloe. I mean, that's what makes it such a wonderful healer.
The aloe gel that you buy in the store?
Aloe gel's fine.
Okay.
You can use like I said, for the suppositories and the rubber glove, you can use the aloe juice because not everybody has an aloe plant. The ones that live in the islands are blessed. But over here we don't, have them and can't grow them. And if you have to use something continually, well, you'd have to have a house full of aloes to be making some of these things over and over again. So you can buy the aloe gel, the aloe juice, and yes, it does work. Make sure you get a good aloe, and it does work. Well, now the question that I get asked quite a bit, and I just put this up here for fun, is that can you take too much aloe? And so studies show that the only way you can kill a rat with aloe is to drown them in it. So anyway, because that's where they do their studies. So, you can't take too much aloe unless you happen to be allergic to it. Any questions? Oh, that's okay. I have to figure out what I'm going to go to next. I'm going to show you cabbage. How many people have ever used cabbage? I tell you what, that stuff is what? Yeah?
You said you cut potato as aloe vera. Where do you use the potato? For hemorrhoids.
For hemorrhoids. Oh, but I'm going to show you a lot of things or just tell you as much as I can tell you about potatoes. Potatoes, if you had nothing else, potatoes will do almost anything when it comes to drawing out infections. For you name it, potatoes works fabulous. Just a potato. And I'll show you how we just grate them and use them. Here's an onion. If you get a bee sting and you don't have anything else available real quick, slice an onion. Fresh onion works the best. Slice an onion and put it right on the bee sting, and it'll just make sure that the stinger's out naturally, and it'll usually stop the sting in a very short time. It'll neutralize it. But now this is the most amazing thing. It was for me because it took me a while to buy into this. I just looked at cabbage and said, how in the world can you do what they say you do? So let me take these. If you can go to the store, and I've done this, you can buy cabbage, but people come up, and when they buy their cabbage, and you probably all have seen this, they'll rip off all the outer leaves and it's in there. So what I do is get a bag, pick up all the outer leaves, because especially when I'm going to do a seminar, and I stuff it in the bag, and then I go. And I have all these leaves because, so I'll just pretend that this is a good one. It's not the best one. what you do for knee pain, elbow pain, wrist pain, pain, period. Someone just told me at the lunch table, oh, it was your husband. He fell on his face on concrete. Now you can imagine, I don't even like to hear it, I can't imagine that crash. Anyway, he took a cabbage leaf and wrapped his face in a cabbage leaf that night. And the next day, the swelling was down and the bruising was almost gone. Now that was really miraculous healing. And you know what? It's different strokes for different folks. You may heal real quick and you may take a little bit longer. It's just the way it is. This may work for you, it won't work for you. And so never give up on natural remedies, because you may not respond to something, but I guarantee you in nature there is something out there God has that will work for you. So don't give up, just keep trying until you find the thing that really clicks in for you and works. Now what I do with this, when I'm treating somebody, I cut out the, the spine, like this. I just cut that out, and then I leave the leaves like this. I turn them over, and I roll them up like this. Now, you don't have to have a rolling pin. You can take a jar and do this, and I pound it real good. And what it does, you'll see the juices are coming out. Can you see it a little bit? The juices are coming out. I have taken this and put it in a food processor, and I grind it up. And then I put it between a chuck like you saw me do the charcoal. I've done it that way. I did it that way at first because I just couldn't believe in this. I just thought, this is ridiculous. How is this going to take pain out? Well, 2 summers ago, Dr. Agatha and I did a simple remedy class at the North Carolina camp meeting. So she did the talks, and I got up and did the talks and showed all the different remedies. And I had this head of cabbage, and of course, she wanted me to teach it, and so I did. But I hadn't, my confidence wasn't the greatest in it because it just seemed too ridiculous to my mind. And anytime, I want to give you a clue that I've learned through the years. When you think it's ridiculous and not going to work, I grant you it's a great remedy. You just have to get convinced into it. I look at that cabbage leaf and say, that's going to take out pain. Well, after I got through demonstrating this, we had over 300 people in this room in the camp meeting. After that was all over with, then Dr. Agatha and I stepped outside, and I couldn't tell you how many people come, and she was counseling in one corner, I was counseling in the other corner, but everybody came up to me, wanted a cabbage leaf. So I was scared to death. Thinking, oh man, is this going to work or is it not? So I started peeling off. I had a really nice cabbage with big leaves. I started peeling off and giving to them, but then I was getting down to where it was getting a little bit lighter and a little bit lighter, and pretty soon I'm down to where it's almost white. And I'm saying, I don't know if this stuff is going to work. We're getting down to where it's not green. The higher the green, the darker the green content, the more chlorophyll you have, and naturally, it's going to do a better treatment, so to speak. Well, anyway, later that day, I was giving it, putting it on everybody's. I had some ace bandages, and I was cutting the ace bandages and wrapping them on their legs as best I could. And people left, and later that day I don't know how many people within the hours after lunch, because we counseled until lunchtime. We counseled from 10 to 1. And after lunch, I had people coming up and saying, Valerie, my pain is gone. I said, really? I was so happy for them. They didn't know that I wasn't 100% into this cabbage thing. And so I think God wanted to teach me a lesson. And then somebody else would come up and say, Valerie, it went within the hour. I said, really? Oh, that's wonderful. I act like I know what I was doing. Anyway, I couldn't, even the white cabbages, they came up the next day. The whole rest of that camp meeting, I had more people coming up and saying, this cabbage is the most wonderful thing. I said, okay, I guess I'm a believer, because it worked no matter what. Now, I want to tell you something else. I have some people say to me, certain things that I've told or teach or do, you know, that's ridiculous. It can't do whatever. But you know something? I don't care if it's a placebo. You know what a placebo is? Okay, I don't care if it's a placebo. As long as they get results, that's all I care about. So if the cabbage worked, fine. If it was all in their head, you know, and it was a placebo, at least they got relief. You know, it's a natural remedy. They were thinking right. You know, that's how I look at it. So cabbage is wonderful, and no matter where I go, I have more people telling me these fabulous cabbage stories. So I'm a believer in cabbage at this point. And then, of course, Don had to tell me this one. I said, the next day the bruising was gone. You know, he just responded. Cabbage he bonded with very quickly, and he had very quick results. You know? Yeah, I believe you. I have to. So now, if we have the potato, if you go, let me see, do I have it up here? I might have it here. Let me see if, yes, I do. Here we go. Just to run you a quick thing, because you know, it's amazing when you learn these things about vegetables. And you know what I tell people? No matter where you are, if some terrible bite happens or a bad cut or a bad bruise or anything like that, whatever's in the refrigerator, whether it's vegetable or fruit, take it out and use it. Because there are medicinal properties in everything, and I've used crazy things that didn't make a whole lot of sense, but it always worked. You know, you can use carrots, you can use tomatoes, you can use lemons, you can go down the gamut of all kinds of things and you can get results. And I think part of it, God intervenes because that's all you have. And so now you pray and say, Lord, this is all I have. And so please, I remember one time somebody got bit by a hornet and I was standing right next to him. I just finished a class. All I had was a lemon in my hand. And I just took that lemon, smacked it on that area to try to neutralize that sting. I mean, you know, God just does amazing things. But here, I forever lose, I see what I did. Where's that arrow? Here we go. Well, maybe I need to do this. Where's that thing? Maybe if I do this, I won't have so much trouble. Anyway, you can see here, potatoes, everybody talks about, you know, being alkaline, don't want to be acid. Well, here you go. Potatoes are very alkaline reacting food. Now, that doesn't mean with sour cream and butter and all that kind of stuff on it. But when you put it in the raw on anything, it's going to do this thing. It contains many vitamins and minerals, 20 carbohydrates, 2 proteins. Raw have a high concentration of protease inhibitors, which neutralize viruses and cancer. Can you believe that? That's in a potato. And, you know, we look at potato and say, that old white piece of starch, it does nothing but put fat on me. You know, that's how we talk about a potato. But yet it's got all this in it. You know, polyphenol, that prevents cell mutation leading to cancer. You know what cell mutation is, don't you? When they start mutating, and then pretty soon, after enough cells, then you got a tumor. Potatoes has this polyphenol in it that prevents that. You know, it's almost like angiogenesis, which is blood supply being built by cancer to feed and produce a cancer cell. This inhibits it. You know, it has, you know, the skins of a potato are filled with antioxidants. Isn't that amazing? You know, here you can use it for all these. I could tell you many stories, but I can't really, time's running out. You know, fractures, hemorrhoids, sprains, inflamed eye, you know, wonderful. All my life, back when my children were little, if they got an inflamed eye or styes, I always used potato. Well, I didn't know exactly I didn't know a whole lot about it. I just knew, I heard all the old folks say, use potato. So I'd slice off a potato, bandage it up on their head, and clear up their eye. It's just fabulous. It's very good for eczema, you know, appendicitis, making poultices to put on the area. And I'll just tell you a little bit about sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes are marvelous too, you know. They contain peptide substances that bind heavy metals. Now, we all think of cilantro, and we think of things like zeolite because that really binds heavy metals. But so does sweet potato. So here, look, cadmium, copper, mercury, lead, it detoxifies them out of your body. Now, you know, you'd have to eat some, but, you know, if you're having these various foods in your diet all the time, then you're going to be having this continuous reaction in your diet. Now, again, you don't want to slop it up with butter and all that kind of thing. You know, you want to eat it plain or eat it raw. It's very good raw. You can do all kinds of things. Did you know that with sweet potatoes when they're raw? Oh, and here's our cabbage. Now, I forgot to tell you this, but I'll tell you this because I've worked with this with a number of people. It works every time. Is in a study, a quart of raw cabbage juice was given to 55 patients with ulcers. It healed all of them, and it reduced the healing time 72%. Now, I have to tell you how to do it. This does take work. But if you want to get rid of that ulcer, and I've had enough people, and it always soothes it. I mean, right away it starts soothing it. But it takes several weeks to heal it. Unfortunately, you have to make it fresh every time you're going to drink it. You can't take a quart and juice the whole quart and put it in the refrigerator and go get it when you want it. It won't work. So you have to juice it up and drink, you know, 6 or 8 ounces about 3 times a day, and guarantee you within a couple of weeks the ulcer is going to be healed. A lot better than all the medications that they give. Here's a lot of the things, you know, look, it fights yeast infection, it contains antibiotics, you know, destroying bacteria and viruses. And of course we talked about arthritis, bruises, sprains, breast engorgement. I've used it for that. It works for some and doesn't work for others. But oh, you've done that, yeah. And so, you know, sinus congestion, I've had people tell me it works on that, you know. So, and then here's onion. Man, onions can just do all kinds of things as well. Wonderful for earaches. Stop a hacking cough, which I have to tell you how you do that. Sports injuries, you know, ankles, knees, you just grate up that onion, put it in a chuck, and you can put it on there. Appendicitis, bronchitis. We used it for someone that had very serious, 2 people I know, very serious inflamed appendicitis. The one so bad, Dr. Agatha wanted to go to the hospital immediately and she wouldn't do it. So they just you get some water and you slice up your onion and you open it up, you know, or you slice it, you know, across. You dump it in the hot water till it just wilts a little bit, and then you scoop it out. And then you can put it in a chuck. Back when we did this, we made a bag out of a thin type of towel, and we stuffed it in the bag, and then you just lay it across the abdominal area. And I want to tell you what, saved her life and saved somebody else's that should have gone to the hospital, but we were able to stop that infection. In a couple of days, everything broke, and you would not believe what came out of her body. It was amazing. But those old onions did it. Now, radish juice is wonderful for kidney stones, but again, it's a juice that you have to juice and drink it then, and then juice it later and drink it. You can't do it ahead of time. It's great for bruises. I've had, I don't know how many people tell me about osteoarthritis, that they would make a poultice with it, but I had somebody tell me the only way they ever did it was they just took a very thin rag, juiced the juice up, dunked the rag down in the juice, squeezed it a little bit, and put the rag with just the juice in it. And they had marvelous results with arthritis. My mind says, oh, I got to have the whole thing ground up and then it's going to work. But, you know, again, very good for this. For hypothyroidism, it's excellent, but I can't get anybody to stick to it because juicing the radish juice 2 or 3 times a day, they don't want to do it. You know, they'll do it for a few days and then they say forget it. But I do know something else since then that will work as well.